Good morning and welcome to this week's IGTV. This week I'm talking about my teen won't talk to me. I either get the defensive snapback or the stressful silence of nothing. And you're desperately trying to create the connection that you know that's necessary for a healthy relationship to prevent all of the risk factors that happen when they're disconnected. But no matter what you try, it's not working. In this video, I'm going to tell you why this is happening and specific ways that you can build connection, either from the disrespectful part or the you get nothing part, so that you have less stress, lower conflict, greater connection by building trust and respect over time. My name is Allie Payne, and I'm a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach. I've been working with parents of teens for the last 15 years to help parents end this painful disconnection, emotional blow-ups, and stressful silences to build healthy relationships based on trust and respect. This is partly from my own experience as a very troubled teen with a very unhealthy relationship with my parents, having raised two kids, and again, having worked with parents for a number of years. So let's jump in, shall we? Okay, so your teen isn't talking to you. Okay, so how do you build a relationship with someone when they won't talk to you, right? Pretty hard. In fact, it has been defined that conversation or communication, because communication is not just verbal, right? There's texting and everything now, right? Communication is the oxygen of a relationship. And without effective communication, a relationship will die. It cannot effectively, it can't move forward, it can't live, it can't exist. So how do you do that then if your teen won't talk to you? Okay, well, thankfully in this era, there are a couple things that you can do outside of communication that will help you build this connection you're looking for. But first, let's start with why this might be happening, okay? Now, if you're new here, welcome. If you're watching on Instagram, give me a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I want to let you know that the teen brain is a scary neighborhood, and your teenager is in there alone. So because of the adolescent brain development, which is the second and final growth phase in our lifetime, their brain actually grows new hardware, new gray matter, and it's not linear, just to be super fun. Each day, there is increased blood flow in various parts of their brain at random times. Even better. And with that new hardware comes a whole new software install update, but it gets better. There's no manual for it. Yeah, so your teenager's just been basically given a Ferrari, but let's just say they're like 14 or 13, let's pretend. So they've never driven a car and they just got this whole thing and there's no manual. And because you can't go in their brain, you can't actually help them to figure it out. But you can be a safe place for them to figure it out with. Okay. So I'm not going to talk too much more about brain development. If you're interested and you want the video here on YouTube, ask me on Instagram. Just message me at Allie Payne and I can send that to you. So what happens in the teenage brain is that because of a function of that hardware and software install that they are getting, for which they were not warned this was going to happen, and they get no manual. In fact, they usually get crapped on for the most part. They get crapped on for just not doing it right, when they're just literally trying to figure out how to adult with no manual. What happens in their brain is they become highly emotionally reactive, very, very sensitive, often in a mild state of fear, fight, or flight. So their brain is often in a state of mild hijack. So what I'm doing here, I got my tea, got to put my tea down. This is the Daniel Siegel hand model, okay? So this is the amygdala here, our emotion center in the brain. And their brain, this is a regulated adult brain where the prefrontal lobes, the prefrontal cortex, our intellectual filter is covering the emotional brain, okay? This is the brain stem. But what happens in the teen brain is because this part is both physiologically growing and getting all new software, like learning how to figure itself out, their brain is like this. So see this amygdala? It's not fully protected. So it's very raw. That doesn't mean that your teenager is broken. So whatever judgments that you have about the teen, your teen, and the way they are doing teenagerhood are probably in the way of you connecting with your teen. I'm doing a free 10-day listening challenge, which I'm going to guess you are watching or already a part of. And if you're not, this is a listening challenge. So if your teen doesn't always talk to you, this isn't a talking challenge. This isn't about talking more. That's not what a listening... If we're talking about how to get your teenager to talk to you more, probably doesn't involve you talking more at all. And your story about how your teen is doing this massive brain renovation, whether it's, they're so dramatic, they're oversensitive, and they're labeling feelings, doesn't work. All of these things that are judgments and criticism at a time when the teen brain is wildly susceptible to judgment, criticism, and comparison. You could say to your teen, hey, did you have a good day? And your teen could be like, stop yelling at me, you're being so... Like, that is how sensitive their brains are. That's how sensitive their brains are and how much their brains perceive the world, everything, as a threat. I'm not saying this to you because I think you're a bad parent. I'm not saying this to you because I think you're being mean. I'm not saying this to you because I think you're daft. I'm saying this to you because to the degree that you choose to ignore that little nugget of information, your relationship with your teen will not work. Your teen perceives pretty much the entire world as frightening, coming after them, an attack, and threatening. Now, if you can remember that one little thing right there, your teen will probably start talking to you more because you will change your story about what you currently have. And I'm going to challenge you, in fact, to post it in the comments here. What is the story you had about your teen prior to listening to this that was probably in your way of listening more to your teen? Because what you believe about them completely informs how you behave around them. So when you behave around your teen as if they're being defensive, insolent, defiant, like a closed book, they're just trying to like brush you off and you're taking it all personally, it's not going to work. This adolescent brain growth deal is a function of being human. It's a function of our physiology. You went through it too, even though you probably don't remember it because your brain has overwritten a lot of those neural pathways to become a successful adult. So let's remember that. The second thing is let's also remember that just because your teenager is now almost as tall as you or taller than you, looks you in the eye, can dress themselves, go to the bathroom themselves, do a lot of independent things, doesn't mean that they have an adult brain. They don't. And this adolescent brain phase, growth phase, is very similar to the toddler growth brain growth phase. The toddler is learning more complex language skills. They're learning gross and some fine motor skills. They are learning mimicking, some behavior, like all of that stuff. And they have no way of communicating it. It's not much different than the teen brain. So I'm going to ask you to check your story about your teen. That's number one reason they're not talking to you. I can tell you right now. All right. Number 2, not all teens are talkers. Not all teens are talkers. So your teenager is going from a phase where they looked to their parents, likely to you as a child, for a primary relationship connection. Okay? Children do that. They look to their parents. That's normal. And now as a teen, your teenager, as part of a function of the adolescent brain growth, is going through 2 things. Differentiation, which means intentionally finding ways they are different than you. Number 2, individuation, figuring out who they are without you, aside from you. It's a duality, it's complex. Going through that means they look to their friends or internally for processing now, not you. So part of the reason they're not talking to you isn't you. It is also a function of their maturation process in their brain. When you make it up, it is about you. It's not going to work. That's an issue, my friend. That's an issue. Okay? So your teenager needs vastly more time alone or with their friends than they want or need with you. And that is a good thing. I'm not saying never spend family quality time, don't have family dinners, don't do anything together. That's not what I'm saying. Don't go all black and white on me. Okay? But I'm saying that they need this separate time. Now, it means they're going to spend a lot more time in their bedroom. It means that they spend a lot more time on their phone because they are connecting with friends. Digitally connecting feels safer for teens than connecting in person. So that builds that. I'm going to have a little sip of my tea. Teenage brain is naturally very overwhelmed and consumed with thought and emotional processing as a function of this growth. That does not indicate their intelligence. So please do not make that up. This is not about their intelligence. But just for 1 second, imagine you just got all new hardware and you're getting a software upgrade that PS lasts, a couple years. Like the hardware growth, the adolescent brain, it happens between about 13 to 18 and it lasts at least a couple years. The software development, that takes more like 5 to 6 years. Sorry about your luck. Can take up to 25. Super sloth, it's not unhealthy that they spend so much time in their room hear me out, super sloth, hear me out. Okay, sorry, I was going somewhere. So your teenage brain needs excessive amount of decompressed time because of what's going on in their brain. Imagine this for 1 second. They go to school, okay? So at school, this is what's going on in their brain. They are trying to process learning. They're in a learning environment, okay? They're trying to process information, absorption, and not just absorbing the information, but actually like sorting it and putting it in the right piles, let alone understanding it, okay? But because they're teenagers and their self-esteem naturally drops at this time, they have heightened alert of relational awareness, noticing like who's hanging out with who said what to who's whispering to each other in class, who's laughing at what jokes, what was funny. They're building this whole new level of relational awareness. And because, again, of being naturally insecure in this time, they've got this entirely highly on alert self and body awareness. How do I look today? Can everyone notice that zit? I wonder if my pants look okay. Does my hair look okay? Is my jacket, like, do I look cool? Do I look like the Instagram pictures right now? They've got this, it's like the volume on everything in there is turned up on high. And then they get home from school and parents get pissed off at them that they don't want to talk, or that they don't want to talk on the way home from school. They're in overload. They need to decompress. They literally just need to decompress. So whether they come in the door, I don't know what your family situation is, whether your teen comes in the door and you're like, hey, how was their day? And you get like nothing. I don't know. You get nothing. Or a disrespectful response, like, leave me alone. Like, or shut up. Okay, which I'm not okay with. I do not condone that kind of disrespect. But I'm just, for the sake of right now, I'm talking about why they don't talk to you. They need to decompress. And the more that you expect them to talk, it's very invalidating of their mental state, which they cannot tell you because they don't know how to do it. So they can't say to you, hey, mom and dad, I'm getting a new brain. It's like basically feels all new. There's no manual. So I'm really doing my best to figure this out. But pretty much every single thing I do feels like information overload right now. And so telling you things doesn't work. Your teenager is never going to come to you and say that. They're not. And this is why they need more time alone in their rooms. They're literally decompressing. And they are technically, and they're digitally connected to friends because they need more of that friend time because they're building that whole relational awareness and that thing. I'm not saying there's not such a thing as too much phone time and too much social media time. Of course there is. Just talking right now about why your teen's not talking to you. Okay? Here's the second reason, which super sloth, this might apply to you. Not all teenagers are talkers. Shocker! Not all teenagers are talkers. I'm a talker. I'm a verbal processor. I have one of my children who is, and one of my sons is not. Introverts. Maybe your child is also an introvert. If you have a teenager who, was relatively quiet before, but used to share with you as a child and, have some conversation, and they're an introvert who go through this process, I can tell you pretty much right now for free, you're not going to get a lot. Pretty much nothing. Introverts do not need to externally process. That doesn't make them broken and it doesn't make them wrong. Introverts think, process all their thoughts, their feelings, and only speak if they feel it's necessary on a good day. So you put that introvert process, which is normal and natural, in the teenage brain, I can tell you they're going to barely give you 5 words. That's it. And the more you badger, beg, or plead your teenager to share, the worse it's going to get. So if your teenager is an introvert, spending a lot of time alone in their room is respectful of their process. It's what they need. I'm an extrovert, you guys. Extroverted extrovert. And I used to come home from school and I would only come out of my room to eat meals. Number 1, I was doing homework. But number 2, even as an extrovert, as a teenager, I was so overwhelmed by having been with my friends all day, at sports, talking all day. I needed that solitary alone time. I would listen to music. I was really creative. I'd write and color. I just needed some alone time to decompress and process it all. Okay? That's normal. Unless your teenager is beginning to show signs of removing themselves from friendships, removing themselves from activities that they once liked or loved. And I mean, not just changing their mind about a sport. I mean, not wanting to go, perhaps having school avoidance and or appetite and sleep issues, serious sleep issues. I don't think you have a mental health issue, super sloth. I think you have a teenager. That's it. So if your teenager is an introvert, please stop making them wrong for that. And speaking of which, let's check your story about whether something is wrong, because this is what ends up happening for parents. What happens is when you hold the story that because my child used to share with me, but my teenager is not sharing with me, you make up a story, something must be wrong. If they're not sharing, something's wrong. They're into the drugs, they're with the bad people, they're hiding things, I must know. Stop. Stop it. Please check your story. Because when you have that story, I've just got my notes here. When you have that story and you are assuming that their silence is meaning the worst, and therefore you continue to press your teenager to share with you at times when they are not ready and it is invalidating to their process, I guarantee you they will continue to never share with you. I promise you. What happens is your unchecked fear, it's not true, your unchecked fear and story increases your stress. Now you become overly reactive to your teen who is already overly reactive. And now you got two human beings who are both operating with barely regulated brains. How do you think that's going to go? Not well. It's going to increase conflict. Your teenager needs you to demonstrate emotional regulation more than ever. And I'm not saying be perfect, because we're not perfect. We're not here to be perfect. If you're looking for perfect, you're probably on the wrong channel. But it is critical that you check your story. Because what ends up happening is so many parents say to their teenager, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? Why won't you tell me what's wrong? Nothing is wrong. Your story says there's something wrong. And when you consistently say to your teenager, what is wrong, you are labeling their process as wrong because it doesn't work for you. And then your teenager internalizes they are wrong. You don't love them because they don't process your way. I know that's not what you mean. I know that's not what you intend, but that is what happens in the teenage brain. So can we just remove wrong from your language? Can you please just remove what's wrong? Listen, I need you to check that story, check your fear, check your story outside of that relationship. Do not process that with your teenager unless you have some hard data that says, I'm concerned, this is what I notice, like all the other things, okay? You go check that process with somebody else. It's real. I honor your fear and your heartbreak and feeling rejection. Yes, I honor and respect that. Please don't make that your teenager's problem. That's an issue, okay? So, your teenager might be an introvert. So that's one thing. And when you are constantly saying what's wrong, not working. I'm going to give you some scripts that you can use to avoid that word in a minute. Okay? I want you to create an invitation of silence. In order for your teen to talk to you more, you are going to have to talk less. Stop filling the space with words. Stop filling the space with your thoughts and your verbal process, which I get. Like, I'm a verbal processor, so I am speaking. Trust me, I'm speaking to you from personal experience, not off some soapbox of preachy land that I read in a book, okay? I'm a talker. I hear silence and I'm like, yay, a space to talk. Okay, let me tell you what's going on for me. Like, I've had to really work on that, both as a person, like as a human, but also as a parent. Because it doesn't work as a parent in the teen years. Create an invitation of silence. So love your teen in their silence instead of making them wrong in their silence. Love them in their silence. Start to be okay with awkward silences. Okay? So when the teens feel like they're constantly talked at all day at school, then they come home and they feel like they're being lectured by their parents It's blah, 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 blah. And their brain is already so overwhelmed that they stop listening by like the second sentence. Not because they're trying to be rude, not because they're trying to shut you out. It's because their capacity to take in any more information by 4 p.m. is zero. Zero. Until they have time to decompress. And even then, they need all of the regeneration that they can require in silence or in quiet alone time to be able to just get ready for the next day. So, allow awkward silences. Create this invitation of silence by finding a way for your brain to be occupied without a story that something must be desperately wrong and they're hiding the worst from you. Finding a healthy and constructive place for you to process your emotions and your day that is not with your teenager who cannot absorb any more information, so that you can create an invitation of silence and allow the awkwardness. Just allow it. Let your teenager pick the playlist on the way home from school. Don't expect every car ride to be some life-changing, meaningful conversation. Yes, teenagers love talking on car rides for the most part because it's called windshield time, because you are not looking at them. And so because there isn't eye contact, they feel safe. And so you may have some really meaningful conversations with your teenager when you're driving to activities or on the weekends, whatever your family schedule is. It could be to and from school. I don't know. But don't expect that every time. Allow the silence. Because when your teenager trusts, remember, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Your teenager is terrified of the world right now. Everything feels threatening, frightening, because their brains are so susceptible to criticism, judgment, and comparison. So until you create an invitation of silence that is big enough and long enough that they trust it's safe to maybe step into, put a toe in the pool, they're not going to talk to you. Mostly because you're still talking. Did you get that part? So until you stop talking, but not stop talking as in literally ignore them, not that. I'll give you the scripts in a second, but you just like, I love you where you're at. This is hard. I get it. Your brain is full. I get it. I love you there. It's okay. And you create this silence that lasts long enough that it's going to be really uncomfortable for you, that your teenager trusts that it's still there. They're not going to step into it. And when they step into it, because they will, if you can do this long enough, your teenager will begin to trust that that invitation of silence is safe enough to step into. You had better zip it and listen. Zip it and listen. Because I know as a mama, when your kid actually shares something with you, it is so hard not to get so excited and be like, ah, they're sharing something with me. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. And then that happened to me too. And then yeah. And then what happened? And who were you with? And what were they wearing? What did they say? And your gorgeous love and affection and curiosity and excitement for your relationship with your child becomes a deluge of interrogation and interruption that their inefficient processing system cannot handle. So when your teenager begins to share with you, zip it. Because even though you feel you are expressing curiosity and you're so interested in what they have to say and you care, teenagers tell me this all the time. Even very valid questions. Yes, actually, you do. I will give you the scripts in 1 second for the active listening. Just hang on 1 second, okay? even valid questions of like, so who were you talking to? And where were you? Like real normal questions that as an adult we might ask each other, which by the way are still interrupting and not active listening because we're not taught this. We're taught how to interrupt. We're taught, oh, I should jump in now and share a relevant story about how that happened to me. I'm going to just clearly tell you right now that is still interrupting. And your teenager's brain only takes one little speed bump to get off track and frustrated, and then they can't find their spot and where they were, and then they're going to shut down again. And they will stop sharing because they were trying to tell you something, and your gorgeous curiosity and need to interject or show relevance or actually was interruption. It's all interruption, people. Let's be honest, okay? I know culturally that is acceptable. But that is interruption. Full stop. Okay, here are the scripts for you to help you talk to your teen better. Sorry, how to connect with your teen so you listen. So as far as the smile and nod, no, you don't. You can just smile and nod. Yeah, like if they can see you. I mean, if you're in a car, that might be harder to do the smile and nod. But here's active listening statements for you, okay? Active listening is not interruption. Active listening looks like this. So let's say your teenager is finally sharing something with you and it's everything in your power not to jump in because you're so friggin' excited. You go like this. Yeah. Huh. No way. Really? And then what happened? Cool. Yeah? So notice those are super short statements. Very few were questions. Like I didn't even say, and what did you think about that? And then what did you wish happened? And then like, those are all valid questions. But even those questions, until your teenager is completed their story, when they are complete, all you say is, thanks for sharing that with me. That's it. Because you have validated, you appreciate them sharing, but that is also not the time, PS, where now you're like, okay, so what did you want to happen? Like now you're going into like fixing mode or like some kind of FBI interrogate, and who was there? And then where were you with? And what were they wearing? And what did they say? And then what time of day was this? Now, was it sunny that day? Or was it like, stop. Your teenager will not share with you. When your teenager is finished, and only when they are finished, and you know how you know? Here's my trick. Here's how you know. Count to 5. You think your teenager's finished, and you're like, I've been waiting all this time to jump in. Because I do that. I know. Count to 5. Count to 5 in your head before you say something. Because for the most part, your teenager's actually not finished. They're processing to get to the next thought because of the inefficiency of their brain. And when you wait 5 seconds, you'll be shocked how much more they're going to tell you. Okay? Because our brains are trained culturally to interrupt, and we are trained only to practice responding. We are not trained to listen. We are trained to practice to respond. Our brains can barely listen for up to 7 seconds. So the fact if you're still here when I started and it's been 35 minutes, high five, you win the prize on listening today. Our brains can barely listen for 7 seconds. And all we are doing in that 7 seconds is formulating a response. No wonder we're not trained to listen. We don't know how. So if you want your teenager to share with you and at some point listen to you, you are going to need to model effective listening for them. Listening requires presence. Are you on your phone when they're talking to you? They're not going to talk to you at all because they don't feel valued. put your phone down, or simply say, I used to say this to my teens because I work on my phone, and my talker would come home from school and he would just start talking and I would be like, just let me finish this one post and then I can pay attention. It's more respectful for me to say to my teen, I can't listen to you right now, but if you give me 2 minutes, I love you and I do want to hear what you have to say. And I would finish the post and then I would put the phone down and I would turn and I would face him and all he was doing was debriefing his day. He's my talker. He's literally just like talking me through what happened in his day. And I'd be like, yeah, cool. Wow. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's all I was doing. And then he would like finish. I would count to 5 and he would either keep talking or he would be like, he would just be done and he would turn and walk to his room. I'd be like, thanks, buddy. That's it. That's all. If I had questions, I would wait and go back to him after. Unless he was significantly in an emotional struggle, then I would say, and this is one of the biggest reasons your teen's not talking to you, is because parents go straight to fixing mode. We have to fix everything. That's it. We have to fix and solve right away. So your teenager is not going to talk to you if you hear problems or you are trying to hear problems for you to solve, to feel better about being a good parent. Stop it. Your teenager doesn't need to be fixed or solved. And if you're not sure, then you ask them, do you want me to listen or would you like help? Just ask. For the most part, they're just processing and they just want you to listen. Okay? Here's another reason they don't talk to you. Let's say your teenager comes home and they're talking about vaping. They're talking about vaping and this vaping and these vaping sticks and CBD vaping and whatever. Does that mean they're vaping? No, it doesn't. They're just talking about vaping. But you freak out and think now they're vaping. So you got to jump in there and you got to tell them which way is Sunday and you got to like make sure that's the job of a parent. Hold up there, Sheriff. What if you just said, hey, I'm curious about what you just shared about vaping. Are your friends doing it? Or is this something you're curious about? Or tell me more. Like that. So I will definitely do that, Anna. Thank you. So if you are constantly trying to find something in your teenager or something they're sharing that you're trying to solve, game over. It's off. They're just processing. Okay? So here's other ways that you can speak to your teen in a way that honors their silence if they're not a talker. You can say, it's okay if you don't want to talk. I love you either way. You can say, I understand I'm a talker and I like to share and I know that that might not be for you. That's okay. I love you. You can say, I understand if you don't want to share. Sometimes silence just feels better. Or, hey, I understand you might want some time to decompress. It's okay to not talk. Make it okay for them to not talk. You are validating their process and making it safer for them to actually talk. Okay? You can say, do you want to put on your playlist on the way home? Let's listen to some of your music. Something like that. Or if you want to talk, I'm here to listen. But if you say that, so help me, you had better keep your word, because listening means using these, not this. Okay? The next thing is you can use your phone. You can send your teenager love notes that do not require a response. Okay? So you can send your teenager who doesn't talk much to say, I love you. That's it. Because you're not expecting a response from them. It's another pressure on their brain. You can send, and don't do this like every single day, okay? It's too much. Unless you have a child, you've got to know their love languages. Maybe their love language is not verbal affirmation or physical touch. Maybe they're quality time, and that means sitting alone, reading a book together in the same room, in silence. And that is their love language. Just because that's not your love language doesn't mean they're wrong or broken. So for you to say, to text them, you could say, I know you've had a lot on your plate this week. I want you to know I'm proud of you. Just something like that. Just send them little love notes that don't require a response. These are all ways for you to get your teen to start talking to you, because when they're talking to you, that requires, lather on the love. That requires you to listen more. So if you came to this video to learn how to talk better to your teen, this is not that video. This is the video where you learn how to use this less, how to use this effectively, but more importantly, how to use these, which is not something we're taught. We are taught to interrupt, and that somehow that shows that you care, and it doesn't. So no. We're taught to only listen to enough information to form a response and then interrupt with it. That's what we're taught. That's also not listening. Your teenager is processing so much information right now in a very inefficient computing system, which does not mean it's a sign of their intelligence. So they need more downtime, more alone time. Okay, so active listening. Okay, all those just little one-worders, active listening. When they're finished, count to 5, don't interrupt, and then say, thanks for sharing that. And then ask before you start going off, are you looking for help on that, or did you just want to share? That's it, okay? You want to love them in their silence. Make them right for how they're processing. Don't make them wrong in it. Get help with your fear story. If you've got fear stories coming out the yin yang and now that's creating you being overreactive with them, you go process that somewhere else. If you're feeling super hurt and rejected, I love and honor and respect you in that place. Please get help with that outside of your teenager. It's not their problem. It's yours. That's an issue. Okay? Your teenager is not here to validate your presence. So begging, pleading, and badgering your teenager to participate or engage with you will create more disconnection and silence than what you might have ever had. Okay? It is really, really hard, to stay in silence if you know they're struggling. And when they're struggling, what your teenager wants to know more than anything at this stage in their life, as their brain is beginning to grow, is that you trust them. So you can say to them, it's okay to struggle. It's okay to struggle. This can be hard. I'm here if you need me. I will help you find help if that feels right for you. If you don't want to talk to me, that is okay. I will help you find someone that works for you. And if you come to me and ask for help, I will trust that you have considered that, and that I trust your choice. Your teenager wants to desperately know that you trust them. And every time you interrupt, every time you solve and fix, all they hear is they are broken, they're not doing it the way that you want, you don't love them, they are wrong, and you don't trust them. So, because if they talk about vaping and you freak out and lose your shit because they've talked about vaping, but they weren't actually gonna vape, they were just talking about vaping because they're curious about it. If you freak out about anything, they will tell you nothing. I have sat in front of my kids literally losing my brain inside of this skull, literally. And as you may have noticed, I have a very expressive face, and I have had to seriously rein it in. In my brain, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And on the outside, I'm like, And what else happened? What would you like from me? Dying inside, doing my cool as a cucumber on the outside. Because the only way your teenager is going to talk to you is if you build emotional and psychological safety. And that requires you to have a regulated brain and be okay with silence. I hope this has been helpful for you. This is a larger version of the 10-day listening challenge that I'm doing. Again, if you're on Instagram, hit the follow. If you're on YouTube, give me a subscribe. And I would love to hear your insights that you learned in this video. Post it below. It will be on my profile very quickly and up on my YouTube channel later this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. Again, my name is Allie Payne. You can find me on Instagram at Allie Payne, on TikTok at Allie Payne, and on YouTube, Allie Payne. If you want more, you can check out my website, alliepayne.com, and you can book sessions with me or all of my online programs. I'm here to help. I believe in you. I know this is hard, but you don't have to do it alone. So let's do it together. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week, 11 a.m. here on Instagram every single week. Bye.